That doesn't yet. No, I think she's always just not yet. Just had her for a little while. I mean, of course, she's not very old. Her mother's pretty young, so her mother, her grandmother, our grandmother passed away, so then she needs to be she has some of her own grandmothers, some of her other grandmothers. Probably want to be able to live with us, we do. Right. I'm actually not. Yep, that's all we're doing. Somebody else is going to love it as much as we can while we can. This is the size of life. It's with me.
So is Shavana is the period phase, or is it the
That's okay. That's okay. They're all working. Yeah, I feel bad. Yeah. Don't worry, they can't stop.
That's just disturbing. But it's also disturbing to me that it's in the way of the ministry.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Auburn Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, which is located on occupied ancestral land of the Muskogee Nation and housed in a building constructed by free, formerly enslaved African Americans. We gather here with humility, honoring those who came before us. We extend a special welcome to those of you visiting or still getting acquainted with this community, looking for a place you can call your spiritual home. We hope that you will feel welcome and accepted just as you are. We invite you to join us in our nurturing of the Spirit, transforming the world through the pursuit of truth, love, and justice. If you are new, we invite you to add your name and contact information to our visitor log at the other end of the building, near the greeters, so you can receive our weekly email newsletter. You may also request this online at auf.org/visitor. We're a very active congregation, so watch the newsletter, order of service, and the website for announcements of the activities you may be interested in. Now, as we ring the bell to begin our service, please turn off your phone and other electronic devices.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when the faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well with my soul.
A reading I'm doing right now is from What Gives Us Life by Unitarian Universalist minister Vanessa Rush Sullivan. Life is complicated and uncertain and gorgeous with some things we can count on It has seasons of struggle. It has seasons of delight. And sometimes the two blow in and bloom simultaneously. Like now, like always, maybe always. And we are here together, all of us from different corners of the world and different families on this journey of liberation. If there is a way to live resurrection, I think it is like this. May what holds us in bondage to death or loss or hurt or sadness be released, and what gives us life, hope, joy, rebirth, feel invited to claim us, and may we claim it, sinking our roots down into what grounds us and reaching for the sun. In this spirit, may we be gathered here this Easter morning. And the chalice lighting. These chalice lighting words from Marti Montgomery. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift. As is our tradition, we also light a candle for those individuals and families on our southern border who are separated from loved ones and suffering. May our elected leaders work with good faith to implement policies that respect the dignity and worth of those who are seeking a better life for themselves and their children, free from terror and deprivation. And today, a third candle. On this day, honoring Trans Day of Visibility, may we feel the call to reach in and bring that love out into the world in full force, even if you are not sure what that looks like, even if you are afraid, even if the world feels like it's breaking, the chasm widening for what might be yet to come. The world is waiting for you. May you come forward in your wholeness and beauty as you were created to become, and know you are not alone. Will you please rise as you are willing and able for an opening hymn, which is number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakens Again, in the great hymnal.
This is one you'll have to read the words because the ones you grew up with were not written by Samuel Longfellow of the Unitarian Longfellows, like Henry Wadsworth. But the hallelujah is still there.
One of the ways we care for our community is by sharing our joys, concerns, and milestones. We begin with a silent sharing and invite you one at a time to drop a pebble in our communal bowl. If you have a brief joy, concern, or milestone you'd like to share with the congregation, please come to the front and share it using the microphone. Please maintain social distancing, coming to the microphone after the person in front of you has finished. If you're joining us virtually, please share your reflection in the YouTube chat box. If we have any spoken concerns or joys, please come to the front now and express those as you will.
Well, on Easter, I guess it's appropriate to talk about the joy of the resurrection of the azaleas, which is wonderful. I have a concern. We already have for baby lambs, and you can tell that they're humanoid because already two of them are headbutting. And the milestone is this marks the 3rd or 4th annual, let's call it neutering failure. So who knows how many of our 17 youths are going to give us twins.
My grandson, Malcolm Severus Snake, Julie, got a scholarship to a fine arts high school in Brooklyn.
Oh!
I have a concern. I need someone to cut my weeds. I can't say it's lawn. I'm willing to pay a fair price. Actually, what would be best would be half a dozen of goats to chop them down. But anyway, I can't do it myself. I don't even have a mower. But whatever price anyone wants, I'm willing to pay it. Okay.
All right, well, maybe I have an answer. Anyway, I'm definitely going to help you there. So yesterday I had 11 people come down from my win at the auction called Macho Man. And I'm celebrating it because it was an amazing team of people. And I have to shout out. So, starting with my caulking group, that is Jim Newton, Robert, and Ralph. So that's the caulking group. Now Robert was painting, sorry. Peter was on the caulking group, and Robert painted every damn window in my house. Framed it out, it's glorious, glorious. Then my porch, this junky little piece of porch, and it had all sorts of rot, I had not aware. So they bust down the whole thing, And Steve and Shannon really put it together, and then Brandon and Sean came in at the end and helped. But then there's the ramp with Sean and Brandon fixing this whole entire ramp. I can't go on. Oh, and then there's Laura and Tim. They're out there, and they cleaned all the way around this dog garden. And then I have Kirk, who is this soil specialist, coming in there and going, oh yeah, you got to do this, you got to do that. It was 10 men and one glorious woman, and that's why I'm here. Well, okay. But also, I hope that you all understand this community and connection. It's incredible when you see it all wrapped around each other. It was marvelous. Thank you.
I hate to be a buzzkill now. I have a small concern, and not to be a negative Nancy. I happened to arrive a little earlier than Martha asked us to for choir rehearsal this morning, and the fellowship was in quite a state. The chairs were like one giant mass. They had rearranged the piano and the benches. There was crap all over the floors. I don't know who was here last, but it is a concern. We are very generous in offering our space to people, and I love that we do that. But if any of you know people who have organizations that meet here, please stress to them, like, that is a privilege. It is not a right, and they should take care of our space in the same way that we would. They should leave it equal to or better than how they found it. That's how my mama raised me. So again, just like, luckily I got here a little early and we could kind of straighten up for all of y'all, but it was a little bit stressful.
All right, Marta.
It was more than a little stressful.
I'll just say I apologize because I usually do this every week, but I was busy out at Pam's.
Yes!
Not your job.
All right, if there are no more announcements, we'll move on into the offering. A religious community is like a river formed from the many streams of our individual lives, merging and flowing to the sea. The members and friends of this fellowship share our time, energy, creativity, imagination, vision, talents, and skills. Our metaphorical river also depends on our shared financial support to complement our time and energy. At this time, we invite you to give as generously as you are able in service of our mission. You may contribute online via PayPal at auuf.org/donate. If you're writing a check, make your check payable to AUUF. You can drop it in the offering bowl or mail it to P.O. Box 669, Auburn, Alabama 36831. Whether by check or online, please note whether your donation is for the pledge or for the plate today. If this is your first time with us, please allow the offering basket to pass you by. Your joining us in this hour is gift enough. Now the offering will be received with gratitude.
Be
At this time, I'd like to invite Chris Beskier up for a canvassing moment.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Baskier. My family and I have been attending the fellowship for a little over 6 years now. And we came for the same reason a lot of you came when we first moved to Auburn. We didn't really know anybody, and we knew that a lot of social life in the South revolves around church. And we also knew that we were not particularly religious people, so we were looking for a community where we could be ourselves and explore faith in a pretty non-dogmatic way. And so I knew a little bit about Unitarian Universalism. We'd had some friends who had attended the fellowship in Bloomington, Indiana, and so I was sort of vaguely familiar. So I said, well, let's go check out the UU fellowship. We've been here ever since, right? I especially value our religious exploration program. It's been a wonderful opportunity to see all of our children learn and grow. And I've been especially joyful to see Evelyn and Margaret learning about and growing into Unitarian Universalist values. I see them being compassionate. I've seen them sticking up for people who maybe don't have an ally on their side otherwise. I've seen them reaching out and forming relationships with people who are very different from them, different backgrounds and different beliefs, and just being a good helping people. And I want to make sure that we're continuing to support that for our children and for ourselves. We recently have been working on imagining the future of the religious exploration program using an appreciative inquiry, and I've just been so grateful for the time and energy of the youth and the teachers and the parents and everybody in the community who has come together for those sessions to help us imagine that future, and I think we're well on our way. We've been blessed to have Meadows with us again this year, helping to lead the program as the acting director of religious exploration, and one of the items among many that's on the aspirational budget is a salary for a permanent new director of religious exploration, so we'll be doing that search here in the coming months as well. So that's why I'm pledging, is to help make sure that RE continues to be a vital part of this fellowship, and I hope you'll ponder what's vital for you, whether it's RE or music or Reverend Marty's wonderful sermons or whatever it is that brings you here and keeps you here. Please pledge, please up your donation if you're able to, and thank you. All right, it's time for the moment for all ages, which I'm going to read. How about that? Pretty convenient. So would all the young people and those young at heart please come down front for the moment for all ages. Hi, everybody. Happy Easter. This is an interesting year that the Easter holiday coincides with Ramadan, which is an Islamic holiday. And so we're going to read this book, Ramadan, written by Hannah Elliott and illustrated by Rasheen, which is an overview or a description of what Ramadan is all about. In the 9th month of the year, when the crescent moon first appears in the sky, it's time to celebrate Ramadan. Ramadan lasts one whole month. It is a time to reflect on ourselves, to be thankful, and to help others. During this special month, we eat and drink only when it is dark outside. Before the sun peeks out each day, we have a big meal called suhoor. We fill our bellies with foods that will give us energy all day. When the sun disappears in the evening, we gather with family and friends to break our fast. We eat a date. Then we share a meal called iftar. We fast because we know that there are many people who are less fortunate than us. We appreciate how lucky we are. During Ramadan, mothers and fathers still go to work and children still play, go to school, and see friends. But throughout the whole month, we think about what is most important to us. We spend time with family. We pray. We lend a helping hand and try to do other good deeds. When the new crescent moon finally appears in the sky, it marks the end of Ramadan. We celebrate with a big feast called Eid al-Fitr, which is also called the Sweet Festival. For the next 3 days, we eat and we pray and we give each other gifts. Ramadan may be over, but we will remember what it taught us. We will remember to love our family, pray, and give back to others all throughout the year.
May your words bring truth into the world. May your hearts know love and your hands do justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
As usual, I want to thank all the people that participated in making this service happen. As always, Martha and the choir, our greeters, our angels, Randy, who's our program associate, Chris, everyone. Daryl, every single week is so much a part of this service, and I always want to appreciate them. Keeping Easter, celebrating Easter for me growing up as a Unitarian, and I'll say Unitarian because I'm old enough not to have grown up a Unitarian Universalist, was waking up to discover my very own straw basket. How many of you remember those or still have those? I asked a couple of the kids, I told them, nobody brought, the bunny wasn't at my house this morning. Perched at the foot of the bed, filled with a mound of fake green grass, and multicolored jelly beans, and the same hard-boiled eggs we had dipped with wobbly spoons in strong-smelling white vinegar and packaged dye the day before. And at the bottom, always a large chocolate bunny, or chick, which is what we were really after, which is all I ate for breakfast that morning. The only time of the year I could get away with that. I was wearing a new dress from JCPenney and new socks and going to service at the Unitarian Fellowship, where Easter was never discussed at all. And then coming home to an Easter egg hunt with my cousins and a ham dinner, you know, the kind where they have pineapple slices stuck on the top, the canned ones. And then my mother would complain for the next 6 months about finding stale foil wrapped candy and rotten eggs, the ones we missed finding, or coming across sharp little pieces of the grass from our baskets and corners of the sofa or behind our beds. That was it. That was keeping Easter in my family. I was curious to know what keeping Easter looked like to others in UU congregations. So one year I put the word out over email before Facebook to a bunch of Unitarian Universalists. Some people told me about long Catholic masses. Some told me about long Presbyterian, Methodist, and Episcopalian masses. One person told me that she also got a new dress and a new hat, that Easter was one of the few times that her father had to go to church with the rest of the family, the only other time being Christmas Eve. And even then, she couldn't remember what the religious message was. Maybe it was non-existent. Another person told me that there was no religious significance that she could recall. Eggs, chocolate, dressing up and going to brunch, an Easter egg hunt at her grandma's. That's it, she told me. When my own oldest children were small, keeping Christmas didn't look very different than my own childhood. They got up early on Easter morning and discovered their own baskets at the foot of their own beds and dug down to the bottom to find that hollow milk chocolate bunny or chick. After they ate chocolate for breakfast, we all put on new clothes, and I wore a new hat. That's why I'm wearing one. And we went to a UU congregation in Kensington, California, which is up the hill from Berkeley, Kensington, California, where the services were basically the same as the ones in my childhood at that fellowship that I went to when I was a kid, except by then the minister, Richard Bokey, had discovered the flower communion, which we will celebrate later on this spring. In fact, he was the translator of most of the songs and poems by Norbert Chopik that we still use. So we all brought flowers from our gardens and took away flowers that others had brought. I remember those banks of flowers, those vases full of flowers. It's absolutely one of my favorite UU occasions. Doesn't matter that we don't do it on Easter. In fact, it's good to kind of split them off now. Still, there was no rolling away the stone story, no rising from the dead story, no meeting Jesus on the road story, no Jesus at all. It was a culturally Christian Easter. In fact, I would say it was a culturally Protestant Easter, attracting the usual larger crowd of folks who once, maybe twice a year, still kept Christian holidays in some fashion. In fact, Reverend Bokey realized that, like a great number of traditional Christians, many Unitarian Universalists only appear once a year at his services. So he would greet us all warmly on Easter, as I am greeting you warmly this morning, saying, in case I don't see you, have a Merry Christmas. I think I want to say that again. In case I don't see you, have a Merry Christmas. So I had virtually no experience of keeping a conventional Christian Easter, of getting up early on Easter morning like millions of people will do today all over the world to hear a sermon on a hilltop about how Jesus Christ died for our sins and was resurrected from the dead. I didn't have to wrestle with whether I believed or disbelieved the story, or believed or disbelieved that he was divine, the Son of God, whose suffering could save us from death and promise us eternal life. I wasn't convinced by the story, I wasn't converted by this story, and I wasn't wounded by this story because I never heard it. Perhaps ironically, one year when I was invited to be the Easter week speaker for the UU Fellowship in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. It's like one of the prize things you can get invited to do is go down to San Miguel. I got to go 3 times. One year I stayed over between the week before Easter and Easter, and I did an Easter service for them that quite frankly is sort of the same service I'm doing for you. I left the fellowship, went down through the cobbled streets, and there I met a jarring ritual that originated in Eastern European communities where Judas, remember Judas, the disciple who was alleged to have betrayed Jesus, and do you notice I say alleged? Where was the evidence and he never had a trial? Was paraded through the cobbled street and burned in effigy, or more accurately, in multiple giant effigies. So instead of resurrection Easter morning in San Miguel de Allende, there was Easter Day retribution. Other than that, the Easter I kept that day is pretty much the Easter I still have been keeping, except lately when I have been wondering whether there is something else, something more meaningful for me and my family to keep in a story that has been at the core of one of the world's major religions for more than 2,000 years now. One that fits with my own reason, one that fits with my own experience, and what my beliefs and continuing questions are about what it does mean to live a good life, and what does it mean to die a good death. You see, I've been wanting to lean into the story a little harder. Lean into Easter. For me, it's not about proving or disproving the part of the Christian Easter story that tells about the women coming to the tomb after the Sabbath and then suddenly feeling the earthquake and seeing an angel of the Lord descending from heaven, showing them that Jesus was no longer there, that he had been raised from the dead and was going ahead of them to Galilee. All we know for certain from historical accounts is what? All we know for certain is that a man named Jesus did live. That's all we know for certain. What we don't, for the most part, believe that the so-called Easter events actually happened, accept as true as traditional Christians do, that on the third day after his death he came alive again. In my UU experience, it's not often anymore a matter of much ongoing discourse, whether it was a hallucination of the disciples or in Paul's first letter to the church at Corinth, which predates the first gospel story, suggests his experience of meeting Jesus after he died was more like a vision, that Jesus was with him as if he was still living, that in Jesus' time and part of the world, one way of convincing people of his greatness, the greatness of a particular spiritual leader, was to tell miracle stories about them. That was one way of kind of upping your God, was to tell miracle stories. And that ideas about life after death, a major miracle, were already around in abundance in Jewish and pagan tradition. That it must have been hard for his followers who loved him so much to have to let go of him in death. That such a good and courageous man could have died such an unexpected, such a sudden, such a horrible death, and then be gone from their lives forever. How much they must have wanted him to come back to life. You understand that? How much that must have meant, and how much they wanted to make him come alive. As with all miracle stories, Unitarian Universalists in these times ask not, what was that real? I don't think very often do we think about that story. Do we want to even think about, was that real? Can it be proved historically or scientifically? But rather, what could the story teach us about how to live and even how to die? I was reminded of this shift from examining religious stories as historical events or provable facts to exploring the meaning behind and within them when I first watched the wonderful animated movie Prince of Egypt. How many of you have seen it? And how many sermons am I going to do when I talk about movies? I realized I did it again. This film about Moses was filled with familiar Hebrew Bible miracle stories. That's what they are. They're Hebrew Bible miracle stories about the encounter between Moses and God in the form of a burning bush. The Passover story with its account of terrible plagues, the miraculous escape from death for the firstborn Jewish children, the sudden parting of the Red Sea. Miraculous, miraculous. I can tell you I have never seriously questioned the historic truth of this Bible story. I've never spent much time wondering whether Moses really lived at all, or even the Pharaoh he asked to let his people go. Whether there actually were plagues of blood and frogs and lice and wild beasts and pestilence and boils and hail and locusts and endless darkness and the death of firstborn Egyptians. Or if the sea really did open wide for Moses and his people and then swallow up the pursuing soldiers. It's not that I believe these things. This is not the important part of the story of Passover for me. For many Jewish people, however, how to keep Passover has been just as puzzling, just as troubling, just as painful now as how to keep Easter for people who can't believe and don't want to observe religious holidays the way they were taught. There is too much in the Passover story to disbelieve. There is too much that is inexplicable. There is too much in that story that is cruel. So some of us don't celebrate Passover anymore. Or we have a Seder. If we have a Seder, the symbolic Passover meal, we just might eat the ritual food. You know, the matzo ball soup, the gefilte fish, not my personal favorite, and the macaroons, and skip reading the Haggadah, the order service altogether. After letting it go for a while, however, some of us want to keep Passover again, to really keep it, to find what meaning there is once we strip away the parts of the story we can't believe, or the parts of the story we don't agree with. For example, that it was okay for the innocent Egyptians to die in order for the Jews to live, or that it is a story just about a people instead of all people seeking freedom. The Seders, the traditional Passover meals that will be held at the end of April this year. There's a long distance this year between Easter and Passover. By many UU Jews and non-Jews, singing, eating, and reconstructing this traditional service, revitalizing it, reevaluating it, open it up to a different time and people. People reading the Haggadah, the Passover liturgy, will be of all nationalities and identities this year, younger and older, hikers and rock fans and wrestling devotees, never forgetting the backstory, however, the history of the service, but allowing this religious holiday to change and grow beyond its original audience and its original boundaries. From ubiquitous Maxwell House Haggadahs of dozens of years ago. Do you know about Maxwell House Haggadahs? Maxwell House, right before Easter, would, if you bought a pound of their pretty horrible coffee, in some parts of the country, they gave you Haggadah. There were more than 50 million of them distributed over the years. And that was what a lot of people thought the Haggadah was, Maxwell House. Whatever was in there. To the now hundreds of versions of the Haggadah, including many do-it-yourself ones that are available on the internet today, there are so many new ways to create these holidays, to create these holy days. The people who will put together Seders for Passover in 2024 will lean into it and rediscover the resilience and relevance to today's struggles for liberation and dignity that they can keep in this most challenging, in this most difficult, in this most bloody and confusing time. As we might well with Easter. When I lean into the story of Easter these days to find its meaning for me, I'm drawn to the story of Jesus told by Marcus Borg, who wrote a book called Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time, and another called The God We Never Knew. In these books, he described Jesus as a spirit person who had frequent and vivid experiences of the sacred, of God, like Moses and other prophets. This Jesus, for him, was a healer. This Jesus was a wisdom teacher. This Jesus was a movement organizer. Some people, Borg wrote, thought he was insane, or at least eccentric and even dangerous. Some of his followers thought he was not dangerous enough to bring about the changes that they desired. Jesus was arrested, convicted, and left to die on a cross, which was the way that some men were executed in those days. He was not alone. When his disciples and followers learned about his death and began to mourn, realizing their own cowardice in abandoning him when he was about to die, they remembered him. They put him back together again. They continued to experience him after his death in a radically new way, as a spiritual reality for those whose lives he touched and continued to touch over the centuries following his physical death. His teachings, his love for people and their love for him could not be killed. In fact, were resurrected and brought to life again. For Unitarian Universalists, this story symbolizes, at least I think it does, the power of ideas and the power of human qualities to live on after us. To leave such legacies can give our daily lives meaning and the opportunity to keep loving those that we love for as long as their spirits are with us. In other words, no one has died in vain. This is the claim that resurrection throws in the face of death. Along with the dyed eggs and my new hat and a special breakfast, maybe just chocolate, I think I can keep this Easter. I think I can keep this story of resurrection. As Unitarian Universalist Mark Harris writes, we give thanks this day for life reborn. We give thanks for joy to overcome loss and pain. We give thanks for the earth as it blooms its renewal. What Easter can you keep? May it be so. Would you please rise as you're willing and able for our closing hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses. And you know, it has a lot of verses, but it's not very long, so I think that we should do all of them today. 298. The closing words are from a book of poetry that I wrote. It's a preview of the fact that in a few weeks I'm going to come back with a nature poet, Stephen Wing, and we're going to do a whole thing on children and nature and poetry, so this is a preview. And it's called Ascension. Despite brown edges, I can count on the dogwood, count on the azaleas, on irises and morning glories. They are my resurrection, rising to meet the season, no matter how muddy, how disconsolate. I can depend on their ascension, the private Easter poking through the clay soil. Count on what I planted to merit praise and glory. Alleluia. Each bloom and tender.
Please join me in these words as we extinguish our challenge. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now let us sing the benediction. Go forth into the world.
Let me start it, or you can.
Fast
all for coming.
Oh, I'm gonna do announcements.
Anyone who didn't get a chance to do announcements before, please line up.
Pride on the Plains and P-Flag are joining the Tumors Corner sit-in today from 5 to 7 to celebrate the Trans Day of Visibility, so come out if you like.
Hi there, I'm Becky. After the service today, the RE program is having its traditional, non-traditional, cooperative Easter egg hunt. We're having it after the service in case any parents or others, old-timers who miss going to that kind of thing, want to join us. We're also doing UU musical chairs, and if you don't know what that is, I invite you to join us and find out.
Hello, I'm Megan. I'm looking for more volunteers for the playground. So I'm going to leave it up here so people as they pass to go out to the Easter egg hunt or the musical chairs, which I'm very curious to see, could just maybe sign up. We are looking for one more volunteer for next week, and then we have it all the way out till June 2nd, which kind of surprised me that June's on the horizon, but future people who plan ahead would want to sign up. We appreciate all the help out at the playground. Thank you.
Yeah. So like a few years ago, I was an RE teacher, and we were doing the Easter egg hunt, and one of my students, Valencia, was there, and somehow I said, "Ladies and gentlemen," and she went, "Like, I'm not a lady, I'm a little girl." And it was that her affirmation of her identity was like really cool, you know, and it was fun looking for the Easter eggs like that.
Yeah.
Woo! Thank you all for coming. For those of you who wish to stay for a coffee hour and socialize, we're happy to have you. Have a great week.
Okay, I brought the snacks for your issue. I brought snacks for